Hello and welcome back to another video. My name is Harris Bard for Pond Life Aquatics and Tropical Fish London, and in today's video I am going to be talking you through only 3 species that we got in this week that I want to highlight. Let's get into it. So first things first, the elephant in the room. The reason why I'm not going to be doing a full fish tour this week is because I want to keep the temperature down in the fish house, and doing a full tour means having the lights on, and we've managed to stabilize the fish room around 27 degrees with the fans and doors open and all the lighting off and only having the lights on for a few hours, which is how I managed to get the B-roll of the beautiful species that I'm going to talk about today. So the first species that I want to highlight this week is probably going to be one of the most popular that we have in. It is the Panda Swordtail. As those of you who watch the channel know, I am a big fan of swordtails in general. They are a live-bearing species with the Latin name of Sephorus, which literally translates to sword bearer, hence swordtail. They exhibit tremendous sexual dimorphism, with the males having a modified sword-like anal fin and the females having no such appendage. What's fascinating about swordtails is that they can have live young, hence live bearer, which is a tremendous evolutionary adaptation. Having live young means that the fish can almost fend for themselves immediately after birth, which, unlike a lot of fish who lay eggs, means they have some sort of defense for when they get predated on as young, as they can actually swim away, as opposed to eggs, which are of course sedentary. Swordtails are native to the fast-flowing rivers of Mexico, and when you think about how you're going to keep them, you should think about these river systems. These are heavily planted, densely vegetated river systems that really dictate how swordtails prefer to be. Now, when people wonder about how to keep swordtails in aquaria, realistically, you're looking at anything from a 15-gallon, but if I was going to keep swordtails myself, I would be wanting to keep them in at least a 30-gallon, well-planted aquarium. And of course, with most river system fish, they are always going to prefer well-filtrated water. That being said, swordtails are an extraordinarily beginner-friendly species because they are so adaptable. They particularly like a slightly alkaline solution, water, while having that dense vegetation and good filtration will allow them to readily breed inside captivity. It's not strictly necessary, and they can realistically get on in any aquarium setup. However, if you do want to get the best behaviors out of them, think about having as densely planted an aquarium as you can and having a decent amount of flow. If you do this, you will achieve everything that they need. They'll readily breed, they won't have any sort of issues, and when you're thinking about stocking up your aquarium, try not to have too many competing males. Have one male to at least 3 female counterparts, and this will stop competition between males, which can obviously lead to aggression, which can then lead to nipping, and obviously things like that lead to disease. But these Panda Swordtails are absolutely stunning, and I think they are going to do extremely well. Now, sticking with the panda theme, we have some tremendously pretty Panda Platies. Now, Platies are another live-bearing species, which means, of course, they can breed live young, up to 30 at a time, and I'll admit they are one of those species that I know less than I should about. I do really love Platies, however, and I do think they are particularly good for beginner fish keepers. Platies, unlike guppies, particularly when you stick to a single coloration strain, will maintain that color, which is really lovely for a lot of beginner fish keepers, because one of the main things that we have issues with our customer base is when they have things like guppies, where they're having a male and then a different strain of female, you get this weird color mishmash, which then eventually just reverts back to wild form guppies. However, when people keep things like platties, they tend to stick with a single color variant, which means that you get these really beautiful babies, which are almost an exact replica of their parents. As I said, platties are one of those species that I really don't know as much about them as I should. Maybe these guys coming in will encourage me to do a bit more research into them, because they are truly, truly stunning. Second to last, but certainly not least, I do want to highlight our Everglades pygmy sunfish one more time. We got these guys in for the first time a few weeks ago, and I highlighted them on last week's video, and they sold really well. We had a few people travel quite a ways to come and see them after seeing the video, so we restocked this week, and I'm really happy to say that we got a really beautiful mix of males and females in stock. The males have come in slightly bigger than they did on the original order, and they are really showing that sexual dimorphism. The males have that beautiful black body with the blue spots throughout them. And now that I've done my research on them, I realized that we should probably be giving them a bit more planting than we did with just the few we had in, and I wanted to make sure that they were comfortable. Now that these guys have come in today, I've given them an additional amount of hornwort that came in. Unfortunately, the hornwort that we ordered in came in a bit melty, so I figured rather than it go to waste, I'll put as much of the free floating stuff as I could in the top of the tank with a couple of just weighted pieces in the base. They've obviously got the shrimp homes, which they obviously love. The males I've seen going in and out of them, and I've actually started to see a bit of coloration on the females, particularly with that little bit of red coming through on their bellies, which means that they're actually pairing off to breed, which is just tremendously exciting. I think these guys are absolutely stunning. I've been feeding them a mixture of cyclops, copepods, and brine shrimp. I think that they've really taken to taking the cyclops, which I wasn't sure if they were enjoying when I first put it in, but I'm really enjoying having these guys in. We're going to start breeding our own baby brine shrimp in the next few weeks. The only reason that I haven't done it this week, I've got the setup ready, is literally just because I haven't had time. We've been extraordinarily busy here at Panda Aquatics, which is also why I haven't released the first of the mini-series of updating Asia, but that will hopefully be out next week. We just got the new planting and lighting in today, so I will be putting that light in hopefully tomorrow, if not this weekend, and I'll be able to get you guys some footage because it's going to look gorgeous. We've also got some really interesting ideas on how to plant it, which I will be going through in those videos. But if you want to hear a bit more about pygmy Everglades sunfish, then check out last week's video. I'll leave a link to that video in the description below, and you can just skip ahead in the chapters to the section I speak about the pygmy Everglades sunfish. Now finally, another species of fish that I am just so excited to have in stock. They are a dwarf dragon goby. Now we've had dragon gobies and pygmy gobies in before, but this particular species of the dwarf dragon goby is just absolutely fascinating. They are a truly diminutive species of fish, getting a maximum of 1.8 to 2 inches in length. Just to give you an idea, they're absolutely minuscule when fully grown. Thankfully, these guys that have come in are not all juveniles. We have some adults in there as well. But just to go through what's so fascinating about this species and some of their background, just so you guys understand what it will take to keep them effectively, let's just run it down from the top. They are a species of river fish coming from China. And what's so cool, pardon the pun, they are a truly temperate species. They don't really need a heater, particularly in this country. They can go all the way down to 10 degrees, and all the way up to 30. They live in this huge temperature range. And when you think about how you want to keep this fish, you really need to think about where they are from in the world. Very similar to what I said about swordtails. They come from these extraordinarily fast flowing rivers, hence the wide temperature swings. So you have to set them up with a high amount of very, very clean water. So once these guys had been settled in, I decided that I was going to try and give them as best a shot at settling down as possible. I got a power head that we had spare in the shop, wrapped some sponge around it to make sure that these little guys didn't get sucked in because they are so tiny, and I set it up ready for them to go. One of our shop guys wasn't aware of their eating habits, which I will touch upon in a minute. So there was some uneaten pellet food in the base of the tank. I decided that I was just going to give that a quick back out. And then once I'd done that, I decided to try and replicate some of their vegetative habitat as I could. So I gave them, again, one of those shrimp homes that I gave to the pygmies earlier, because Java moss is great, and also having really flat, smooth surfaces is just ideal for these guys. They need to have that almost like rock-like substance, and you can see when they're clinging to the glass, they really enjoy having that flow going across a smooth surface. So I also gave them one of the Superfish Deco series Anubias, and at some point I'll probably be taking some fresh Anubias and Bucevalandra and putting it on some just regular stone so that they have more natural rockery as opposed to artificial to live upon. If you're going to be setting up a tank for these guys, they are going to need a soft substrate, which I am going to think about adding into that tank as well. They are a burrowing species where they will actually dig themselves into the bed of the river itself, and you'll see them stick their little heads out. And when you think about this behavior, you need to realize that they are an ambush predator, and they are truly a predator. They will not accept any sorts of dry food. They need frozen, so things like mysis shrimp, things like copepods, anything like brine shrimp. They'll take anything meaty, realistically, whether that's live or frozen. I put in a little bit of Cyclops and these guys just went mental. You could see with the flow, they suddenly just settled down. From looking relatively lethargic and scared, these guys started to bolster up and begin that hunting habit that this predator species should be exhibiting. What's also so interesting about this species of fish is, although they are not shoaling, they are a communal fish where they need to be with other members of their species. So even though they are such a small species of fish and a single one, some people online say you can keep them in a 5-gallon. Realistically, I would want to be keeping them in a group of at least 5, maybe 6. So you should be thinking about keeping a 20 to 30-gallon aquarium and setting up a species only tank. The reason why I will say species only is because realistically, they're not going to be the best hunters in the world. They are so small, so they need to be able to get their food, and they need that pristine water. That being said, I do have a Mono shrimp in the same tank as them, which I think will only act as a real cleanup crew. As long as we are giving them enough food, keeping on top of the filtration, and that will probably go the same for other species that you can have with them. I would think that things like Corydoras, or something that kind of springs to mind when it comes to very similar kind of behaviors and needs, Hong Kong Plex, where they also need that high flow. They're from a very similar region to the dwarf dragon goby, and they're not going to bother these guys so much. But looking at the dwarf dragon goby, you can exactly see why they named that. They have these almost serpentine faces with these amazing gills and absolutely gorgeous patterns on them. And I'm just really excited to have them in. Ideally, if I was going to be keeping them, I would think about maybe keeping them in a 20-gallon, maybe shallow aquarium, something a bit custom, with power heads on one side, nice soft sand, then lots of rocks with things like Balisinaria growing through it, maybe something like Rotala, or maybe some Java moss, just to give them that nice hiding space. I'd absolutely be thinking about providing them with a variety of different frozen foods, maybe something like a tropical quintet from TMC, and then also maybe thinking about having your own brine shrimp or Daphnia hatchery, just so you have ready to feed live food. But that's all there really is to keeping this fascinating species. And it is really important that people do try and breed them in particular. They are almost endangered in the wild, and although they do readily breed in captivity, due to human interference, their natural habitats are just slowly being destroyed. So as fish keepers, we really do need to be thinking about maintaining the population by giving them the absolute best chance we can, giving them the absolute best opportunities to reproduce in captivity, and then hopefully at some point those captive bred populations will be able to release back into the wild. So that's all from me here at Panda Aquatics. I am really sorry that I haven't got the regular shop tour, but the fish's welfare comes first. I don't want to be leaving the lights on for any longer than I have to, and I'm sorry if the sound's a bit weird. I've got the doors open, there's fans going. We just want to keep the fish as happy and healthy as possible. So for now, that's all from me here at Panda Aquatics. If you are worried about the heat, as we are here, I released a video about how you can protect your fish in the heat on Wednesday. I'll leave a link to the description, and maybe I'll do a card on the screen here. Next week, I will probably be releasing the first of the mini-series on how we are updating the Asia range, how we're going to be doing new planting throughout the range, and potentially some of the new and interesting species we're going to be keeping. So do keep an eye out for that, and hopefully next week it will be a little bit cooler, so I'll be back with a full fish room tour. But for now, that's all from me here at Panda Aquatics, and I hope you'll join me again next time for this pond life.